Hello and welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of the DC United Kingdom podcast. I'm your host, James Graham. On today's show, well, we've got a bit of a feature-packed show and we've got 2 debutants with me today. So this is going to be pretty good, I'm gonna say. So let's crack on and we'll go with the introductions of our 2 debuts. So Sam, I'm going to go with you first. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, how's it going? My name's Sam Nelson. I live in Maryland, just outside of DC. Grew up not even a soccer fan, but as I got older, really got into soccer, got into DC United. I used to work at the game day staff there, so I've been to RFK a number of times working for DC. Now I write and podcast for MLS Aces. It's a comprehensive MLS podcast I do with a couple of friends from New York and from Chicago.
I have listened to the MLS Aces podcast. I didn't realise that was you.
Yeah, that's me. I'm the one who gets drunk and makes stupid jokes.
Amazing. Oh, wow. Oh, welcome to the show, Sam. Thank you for being a part of it. Daniel, introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Wise, and I am a former DC resident. I was born and raised in South Dakota. Lived in DC for about 10 years. Fell in love with DC United sort of at the height of, at the beginning of Ben Olsen's start as the head coach there. But really got my start with soccer following Arsenal FC, going to London and catching the Champions League final in '08 between, it was Chelsea and Manchester United, and they had that incredible finish with the penalty kicks with Manchester United coming out on top and kind of being in sort of like a student union and, not necessarily being super into soccer at the time, but sort of being immersed in a whole lot of people that were in love with the sport really kind of turned me on to it. So, traveled and visited the Emirates Stadium. And then when I came back to America, really got into it. And then when I moved to DC, became a supporter group member with the Screaming Eagles, and man, just went to a whole bunch of games and really just fell in love with the team. And so DC United really solidified that. And I thought it was funny, everyone talked about Europe being sort of the best place to watch soccer. And so I figured, what would a bunch of Europeans, be interested in MLS for? But when I discovered that you had this, and then, the MLS UK show, and seeing that there are people who are genuinely interested in what the sport has to offer on this side of the pond, was fantastic. And so I'm very happy to be on this show, and I'm grateful you asked me.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. You actually mentioned this is going to sound like a really cheesy gateway into a little thing, but you mentioned the MLS UK show, who are the show's sponsors. So I just want to say thank you to Elliot and Henry for sponsoring the show. They are fantastic, and as you said, they genuinely love Major League Soccer, and it is fantastic to see. So if you are listening to a lot of podcasts, so whether it's MLS Aces, whether it's this one, or MLS UK show, tune into those guys if you've not already. They've got fantastic games on there. You see them every week. They now do on YouTube as well, so that is something new to them for 2020. So subscribe to them over on there and just check them out. They're absolutely fantastic. They're very funny guys, and I've got all the time in the world for them. So thank you for that little gateway, Daniel. That was appreciated.
Absolutely. And as far as what I work on, I work on a sort of independent project called Soccer Made Simple. So it's a newsletter that I'll be sort of putting back out once MLS starts again, because it's more of a American centered, sort of for the newbies who are just getting into the sport. But it can be read at tinyletter.com /Soccer Made Simple.
Awesome. Go and check that out as well. So let's crack on. We've got, obviously, like I said, a few things to chat through. So we had the Jersey League a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? What were your first impressions on that, guys? Sam, what did you think of the initial leak and then obviously the official announcement as well?
The I don't know, MLS jerseys seem to just kind of, they're so standard. Everything's kind of the same every year. Adidas just pumps out a bunch of similar looking kits. So when I saw the leak, I was like, this is pretty much what to be expected. Didn't really have super high expectations to begin with, but they come out, they do look really clean. They look good. Other than the three stripes on everyone's shoulders, there is some differences, but it's just back to a standard black jersey for the year will be kind of slick, I think, maybe. Looking forward to it, honestly. Everyone else's jerseys suck compared to the DC side.
Oh, I have to disagree slightly with that. I am a sucker for hoops, whether they're fat hoops or thin hoops, but Portland's kit is looking clean, and I really like what they did with that one.
You see, the thing that I've seen over on Twitter is the San Jose shirt. I've seen people are really divided over that, and I'm on the side of I really don't like it. I don't get why there's that or what looks like a sun. I'm like, no, that looks out of place.
It looks extremely corporate, like, sort of a cheap motel, sort of a standard polo that they make all their employees wear. It is just kind of a weird color scheme. That doesn't really fit with San Jose, and I agree. I can't really get down with that.
Yeah, you either really like it or you hate it, and I don't know. I've never been a fan of yellow in any jersey, so I'm just gonna say I'm out.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I'm just having a quick look through. One shirt I was actually surprised by, and I've not actually said it before until now. It's actually Chicago Fire's shirt. I really like that.
It is clean.
It's just a shame about that badge.
Yeah. I mean, I think all three of us could have made better badges than what they've got going on, but that's all right.
Yeah.
I surprisingly, I really like the New England Revolution kit. I don't know. It's really, it's a little bit different, but still kind of keeping their red, white, and blue roots, which I do like.
Yeah. The other one I kind of like is the Minnesota United's kit as well. That for me is very clean, but I like the way they've incorporated the badge into the actual part of the shirt as well.
Yep.
I really like that.
And then obviously the worst is the Red Bulls by far.
Yeah. What's that about? I mean, they've chosen the wrong reds.
Do you guys remember the Nintendo Virtual Boy from way back in the 90s? And if you ever played that thing, staring at sort of that black and red for hours on end, that is the sort of vibe I get from that kit. And you know what? Leave it to the Red Bulls to just sort of take overall most of the jerseys look clean, but then just to take that and just make it look completely ugly.
They're just jealous of the black and red and how much success we've had, obviously.
Yeah.
Other things that we've obviously had, we've had safe standing announced as well and that's going to be awesome. Obviously before, when Audi Field was open, the standing section, the supporter section was a bit unsafe. When I was there, kicked my shins a couple of times. It hurt. But now that they've got the proper railing in there, that's going to be awesome, isn't it?
It really is, and we'll probably talk a bit further about it. But Audi Field sort of it almost feels like it went through a beta test in its first opening year and a half or so, and now the stadium really has some character about it, and pretty soon we'll have a really good fan experience, especially with the sort of Hall of Honor or Hall of Tradition that just got put up. So, they're really making strides with that.
Yeah. So, Sam, did you make it to the Forward 25 events that was happening at DC at the Audi Field and see all the new Hall of Tradition or anything?
I did not get to make it out. I just had a daughter and I have not left my house in God only knows how long. So I can't wait for the season and be able to take her to a game this year.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah, it's everything looks great. The pictures look awesome, and I'm really excited. Safe standing, like at RFK when I was working there, it was always a joke for the people. It's like, this is what we want, this is the dream, but you can't install something like that at RFK. Well, oh, Audi Field's coming out. That we're gonna have this new stadium. Why don't you install it right away? A year without it, 2 years, yeah, 2 years without it. But this is going to be great, and everything looks good. I guess, I don't know if the XFL, did they all stand yesterday during the game? I don't know.
I've only seen a brief couple of videos on there, but they were from the wrong end, so I didn't see the safe standing area.
Yeah.
But it looks great. It's going to be awesome for 2020, and I would love to come over and see what it's like in person. But I think this year it's going to be a case of I will be staying in England because, like you, Sam, I've got a kid on the way in this month. So
congratulations!
Thank you very much. So it's going to be a bit busy, so hopefully that won't detract away from me doing this podcast and doing all those tweets. But so we've got the safe stand and we've got the jersey leak, we've got the Hall of Tradition, but we've had what I would say has been a fantastic transfer window over the winter. The fact that we've got Bill Hamid in on permanently, we've signed Julian Gressel, which is just an unbelievable trade. You've got Edison Flores coming in. You've got Yamil Assad coming back. What have you guys made of the transfer window so far?
It is a lot of bombast that is, builds a lot of excitement. But I am still very, very worried about that defense. We have, quite possibly one of the most stacked midfields in MLS. But, I'm sort of looking at that back line and, there's a part of me kind of playing sort of mean football manager here, but I'm sort of like thinking, do we maybe put Paul Arriola back around, that right back, so that we have Joseph Mora, Stephen Birnbaum, Frederick Briant, sort of, along that line there. And then, we maybe have, or at least the way I'm setting it up is Flores on the left, Yamil Assad central, Gressel on the right side, and then you have Felipe Martins and Junior Moreno shoring up that defensive mid. Now, do you have a situation where maybe you have Paul overlap, and then do you kind of shift everyone kind of over one, and then you maybe put Assad slightly forward on attack, so it looks somewhat like a 3-5-2 type of weird attack formation. And, that's sort of what I'm looking at. But then, I just, as far as like all of those midfielders, I don't, the guys I listed, I don't want to see any of them on the bench. So, that's sort of the way I would work that out. But, what are your guys' thoughts as far as the roster and sort of the depth go? If we lose one of those guys, it's slim pickings from that point.
So, yeah, I think our big problem really is right now at right back. We don't have a solid right back who we know is going to be able to play. So, other than Arriola, I was thinking maybe dropping Julian Gressel back there too, because at this point, our wingers are truly some of the better ones in MLS. We have a solid set of central midfielders. Our center back pairing that was very, very good last year, in my opinion, the greatest goalie in MLS right now. Mm-hmm. And then, a solid left back. But, that right back position is very, very tough. And even with like 2 or 3 guys who can play it, it's, we would get eaten alive back there from some of the other wingers. So I think we do have to drop either Arriola back or Gressel back and play the other one in the wing and just hope for like you said, hope for the overlap. Now, more importantly, I think my concern is up front. I think all of the midfielders can probably score, but Ola Kamara hasn't been scoring a lot of goals since he left MLS, and even once he came back, it's not like he's really been scoring. He playing second fiddle to Rooney at the end of last season, playing second fiddle to Zlatan, and then being in China where he was very playing too. I really want Ola Kamara to be very, very good this year because I think he can do it and get back into the ways where he was in Columbus. But I am fairly concerned, and I'm more concerned that we don't really have a backup for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's for me. Last season, we had that injury crisis where Mora was injured, then Chris McCann was injured, and we really struggled to find another left back. I don't want us to be in that same place again where we ended up playing with Donovan Pines, Brion, and Birnbaum. It didn't seem to work all too well, so I don't want to see us to have to shift back to a 3-back formation. We are more successful with a 4-back formation, but it's if it needs to be, then obviously we can do it. I want us to see get another right back and another left back. I want to see 2 more defenders in there, and I would love to see another striker come in. It's a shame that we've not just re-signed Quincy, ready-made backup. He knows his he knows his role. He knows he's a backup striker, and he's happy to do that. Why wouldn't you keep him on? I don't think he would have cost a lot on the salary, but we've got that Eric Sorga guy who's obviously not tested over here, but from the things that we've seen over there, from when he's been playing in Estonia, pretty much a goal a game. He's going to be a confident guy. He's going to want to score goals. For me, we need 2 more fullbacks and another striker for us to kind of complete that roster.
Yeah, I know there's sort of a conventional thinking that with Sorga, you want him to sort of ease up or ease into sort of like the MLS pace. So, you bring him over. So he goes from the Estonian league to the USL, and hopefully he comes along. But with the way things are looking now, Griffin Yao, really talented young guy, but again, 17, 20 years old for both those guys. You want to kind of bring them up through the system. Now, Sorga could essentially be, kind of like our Haaland, if he is that good or something, if he comes in and he's, just smoking it, maybe he jumps in sooner than any of us ever thought. But Ola Kamara, he's not going to have any excuse this year because he's got all the support in midfield to back him up and feed him the ball. And, if he can strike true, then, he could almost have, a top 5 striker performance this year if all things, work out that way.
No, absolutely. Totally agree. Obviously, we've still got a couple of weeks left. A few weeks left before we have to finalise that roster. So hopefully we can get those players in that we need to complete that team. Pre-season. So since the last episode, we've had a few matches down in, I think it's been Florida we've been down in, where we've played Montreal Impact, we've played the Red Bulls, and we played Louisville City as well. 2 defeats, 1 win, again, and the only win was against Louisville. Are we going to take too much from those results, guys?
I just don't think you can. Honestly, preseason's such a fickle being. You're playing, a half every game, and a lot of these guys are guys who you don't even know are going to make that final roster. Some guys who are getting looked at for Loudon. It's really tough. It's also really hard to hear that your team lost to Montreal. That one's kind of embarrassing. You just play Red Bulls. It is. I mean, let's be honest. Like Montreal, not a good team. So, beating Louisville, it's like, well, that's a standard to be expected, I think. But everything else, it's very up in the air, in my opinion. Preseason's all about just getting fit, getting ready for the year. And until game 1, I really don't know. As long as no one gets hurt, that's all that really matters to me.
Yeah, and the team was missing key starters. You had Yusa Segura and Joseph Mora, both representing Costa Rica internationally. I think Paul Areola was out. Who else? Russell Canales. I don't know if he got any time, but as far as the team goes, they were kind of dealing with a patchwork sort of team against what is sort of the word is, a pretty much full strength Red Bull squad. So you have to really take that with a grain of salt between the Red Bulls and Montreal.
But we don't like being beat by the Red Bulls, though, do we? Come on.
No, never.
No, even if it's pre-season, it's just not nice, is it? So we've got, obviously, a few more games coming up in the pre-season. Do you think it's just going to be more of the same, where we're just looking to get that fitness back Or do you think Ben's going to actually start playing what he thinks will be his starting 11 going into the season?
He'll probably start touching that first team roster right around the last like 2 games. Maybe we're really going to start to see that starting lineup come together once we start to get this team back. Having Bill Hamid back and the rest of the guys back is going to be really good for them. But until then, I really do think it's just going to be a lot of seeing what's what, trying out new guys. Hopefully, we're going to try some guys at right back and try some guys a lot. It's going to be a big key. Hopefully, at least if nothing else, find a guy who can play depth if some injuries happen.
It's and maybe to the listeners who don't know, but we're sort of dancing around this a little bit because there was little to nothing sort of let out about these initial preseason games. They were all well, except for the Louisville City game, they were closed door games where there was little let out in terms of what happened, and then who saw significant playing time, and who performed, and that's kind of why we're kind of dancing around this, is we're not really sure about exactly how that all went.
Yes, exactly. It was a bit of a strange thing because I've never seen any preseason like that before, where it's been very hush hush. I genuinely don't know how it went, so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether the second half of preseason they continue in the same fashion, where they don't tell us what really happens. I was actually on the DC website, and they still haven't put up the result of the Louisville City game on there, which is strange, since it was just 3 days ago. There you are. So if you don't know, the rest of the preseason, we've got Orlando City this Saturday coming. If you're listening before the 15th of Feb, if not, it's already been, and you'll have to listen to the next show to find out what the result was. Nashville on the 19th of Feb, and then Philadelphia Union on the 22nd of Feb, right ready for the first game of the season against Colorado Rapids at Audi Field. Either of you guys going to be able to make the first game of the season?
I might try to. That could be fun.
Yeah.
And if it's not super cold, I mean, the end of February in DC is just not fun. But definitely would try. I mean, opening game of the year against Colorado, that should be a win. So it'd be fun.
You'd like to think it would be.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, we did beat them last season at their place, so you'd like to think we'd do it at our ground as well. So, speaking of the season, how do you think it's going to go, Sam? Do you think we'll be pushing for playoff results again, or do you think we'll be towards the top end of the Eastern Conference, potentially winning it? How do you see it going?
So, this team, in my opinion, has got to be a playoff team. The money that's been put into it now, especially going out and signing Gressel from a rival, like that's a big deal. A rival in terms of we're both United teams. But I consider Atlanta a rival because they're also a pain in my butt. I think Atlanta United fans on Twitter, I don't know if you guys get pestered with them a lot, but I used to. They're super passionate, which is awesome, but they're also kind of too cocky for a team that's 3 years old, and it really gets to me. So I do have a love-hate relationship with Atlanta. But going back to the question, I really do think that this team's a playoff team. I want depth. I want depth because injuries are going to happen. It's a long year going through the summer. It's a grind, and without guys who can back up at positions, it's gonna get tough. So I don't know if we're going to be up near the top, but I do think that we're going to make a playoff run this year.
Cool. Daniel, what do you reckon?
For me, that sort of initial start is going to be big. And then, the sort of dog days of summer are going to test the team again. What happened last year is we had a really strong start. And then we were humbled. We got punched in the mouth by LAFC. And from there on, it was tough to find a lot of consistency, either through injuries or, particular players not necessarily performing on all cylinders, like Acosta or Rooney, and sort of some locker room drama sort of weighing the team down. What I see this year is a very solidified locker room. I think, especially with a very heavily Latin American midfield. I think you have a lot of guys who can very much, sort of work with each other in terms of their style. So I'm really excited to see what happens. It all depends on, does Ola Kamara show up this season, and does he really take charge as the skipper and really put up some goals? That's going to be really crucial. Now, we do have midfielders who can score, but their, sort of proficiency lies in how they can generate assists. Julian Gressel, he had, arguably the best striker MLS has seen in years, outside of Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Josef Martinez. He has won a lot. He has a Campeones Cup. He has an MLS Cup, a U.S. Open Cup, and he won Rookie of the Year in 2017. So he knows how to win. I think he comes in and performs well. I think the rest of the midfield picks it up. But like I said, it's on Kamara now. Can he really rise to the occasion? And that's going to be someone I'm going to watch very closely this year.
Yeah, and I think with the fact that we've got Gressel now, who, from what I was reading up before the show, he's got the most assists in MLS since he started playing out of anyone. So Kamara's got to be putting a few away this year if he continues in that same vein. Just hopefully Ben will continue playing him in the right place. So fingers crossed that happens. I'm just looking through sort of the schedule for our season. I'm just looking at sort of potential key games. Obviously, big ones is our Atlantic Cup rivals, New York Red Bulls. We are at Audi Field against them on April 26th, so that's fairly early doors in the season. That could really either make or break our season. If we're not starting well and we beat them, then it could kick on. Or if we start well and lose, it could go the other way. And I'm just looking at other games as well. So we've got Atlanta, July 4th. Great day to prepare. Didn't we play them on July 4th last year? Or was that FC Dallas?
Oh, I don't remember at all.
I can't remember that far back either. Yeah.
I can't. Ian, let me have a quick look on that. Here we go. July 4th. It was FC Dallas. Wow.
Oh,
Okay.
There we go. That's good memory.
I'm surprised myself on that one. I think the games against Atlanta are always a good game as well. We had a great game at Audi Field last year. I'd expect it to be the same again this year. One thing I want to talk about, though, and it's not about DC United, though. It's about New York City FC. Where the hell are we going to be playing them this year? Because is it going to be at Red Bull Arena? Or is it going to be Citi Field? Or is it going to be the Yankee Stadium? Who knows?
It's embarrassing for them. I feel bad for the fans. It's kind of a cluster all together. I think what they say Champions League is going to be at Red Bull Arena, but then they're going to split time with Citi Field and Yankee Stadium based on games and availability between the baseball teams. It's very, very hard to be a fan of New York City right now, I'm sure. But their roster is going to be so solid. I think no matter where they play, we're just going to have a tough game. But I really do think, going to Red Bull Arena, playing in their rival's stadium, I don't know. I'm not a professional athlete, but I have to assume that's kind of got to get in your head a little bit. I don't know. You're just seeing Red Bull everywhere around you, and they're your biggest rival, but that's where you have to play your home game. That's got to be tough.
It's got to hurt. There's no other way around it. It's just they can do all they want. They can obviously they've given the fans the free tickets, but that's not going to make up for playing in your rival stadium, really.
2 years ago, just before Rooney came to DC, United was in the process of building Audi Field, and they had completed it that summer. But for about those 4 months ahead of that opening, They were playing out in, where was that? I think they were in like
Germantown
for a second. They were at the Soccerplex, and then I think they were up around. What's the capital of Maryland? Help me out, Sam.
Annapolis.
Annapolis. They were up there for a couple of games, and they were kind of bouncing around a little bit, and they were bottom of the table very solidly. Up until that summer came where they came home to Audi Field. Rooney joined the team, and they lit it up for one of the biggest turnarounds that I think anyone had seen in years for that team. And it's always tough when you don't have that sort of security. I think that played a big role in how DC sort of struggled early in that season, was not having that permanent home. And so that's going to be a big thing for NYCFC, whether or not they have the mental fortitude to get through that.
Yeah. We're going to just take a quick break just before we go on to the Q&A, and we'll be back in a moment.
You don't have to go now. I won't let you down.
Welcome back. Right, so we are now on to the listener round, where we answer your questions. You've obviously sent some in over the last week or two. Some comments, some questions, some thoughts, and all that jazz. So first up, David Chion, who is a member of the DC UK group. He wants to know what we think about Chad Ashton's all-expenses-paid trip to France. So obviously over the winter, some players like Donovan Pines went over to Swansea to train with the team over there. Chad Ashton went to France, and as I said, it was all expenses paid, apparently. Any thoughts on that? I mean, I'm guessing he was doing some coaching or scouting, maybe. Not seeing anything about it, though.
If I search Chad Ashton's trip to France on Google, you get the country of Chad and France relations, and that's all I got. So I honestly had not even heard that you went over there. So if you guys want to hear about the relationships between these two countries, I can read off Wikipedia for you, but that's all I got. Unfortunately, hopefully he was getting some coaching experience in, learning from someone in France. I don't know. Good for him.
Yeah, same thing here. This was news to me when I first saw it, sort of on your sheet. Good on Pines, getting some experience, with Ashton, gosh, is he the mastermind that worked out this Sorga move? And is he spreading his spider webs to France? Because is he getting ambitious now? Can we find our next Kylian Mbappe and bring him over to MLS? That's just weird. But good on DC for just showing ambition in one form or another, or at least sort of reaching out to the broader world for experience.
Yeah, I think it helps the fact that obviously the owners of DC also own Swansea City as well, so using our links there to really help drive the team on. So yeah, when that came through to me, I was just like, okay, didn't know about that. So David,
very ITK.
Yeah. So David, I can't really answer the question because we don't really know that much. And as Sam said, if you look it on Google, you get the relationship between the country of Chad and the country of France. Are you still on that page, by the way, Sam? Because if you are, can you tell us a little bit about the relationship between them?
I just exited the page, but as far as I know, they are countries.
Oh, cool. There you go.
Yeah, so there's that, and I'm sure they're, hold up, here we go.
Oh.
Chad and France. Chad-France relations refers to the diplomatic relations between the Republic of Chad and the French Republic, which France controlled Chad beginning in 1900 until the country's independence in 1960.
Oh.
See, this is why you come listen to the show. You learn a little bit of geopolitics while you're at it.
Yeah, nice bit of
And
history.
they're in the Netflix and chill stage of their relationship right now.
Yeah, they're like still talking, but like,
Brilliant.
That's what it's all about.
Brilliant. Right, before we get too caught up in the Chad Ashton relationship, Chad-France relationship, I should say. Brian, even now I'm getting confused now. So Brian Lake, also another DC UK member, he says, with DC finally planning to do something acknowledging the history of the club with the Hall of Legends, which we've seen and we've had a brief chat about, he asks, is there any talk of moving any part of RFK to wider field? Now, I've looked for this. I've not seen anything. If you could take one part of RFK, Sam, what part would you take and why?
So RFK has that special place in my heart because I had like paint chips dropped on my head while I was working there and just like things falling at me. But the thing I would pick to take with me is the stands from the supporters section, because they bounce because they're like fiberglass and they're really not connected to anything. And so they bounce, you break the chairs, and you're just jumping up and down and having the best time. You shake the entire stadium. And I think that was, if nothing else, bringing that kind of atmosphere back to Audi Field would be pretty sick too. That was my favorite thing to see from RFK. But because DC doesn't because United doesn't own RFK, and the city does. The city just wants to tear it all down, and they don't really care what anyone thinks about it.
There was a strange like buoyancy to those stands, and there was a part of you that was like, this is incredible. When you've got everyone jumping around and chanting, you literally can feel the entire stadium jumping up and down with you. And so, in one part, that's an incredible feeling. But in another, you're like, this feels like this could go down any second, because you're talking a degree of inches that this thing would fluctuate. And so, those are very good memories to take. But I would say, there's a, sort of just right outside the, I want to say 338 section, you'd have La Brea Brava, sort of at the end of the game, win or lose, they'd march up, through the exit, and you'd have this, they'd form this kind of drum circle right in the mezzanine, and for about a good 15 to 20 minutes after the game, they would go through the entire, sort of song sheet that DC United has, and they would then carry that out, well into the parking lot. And so, if I were to take anything, it would be like a chunk of the concrete just outside that exit where everyone would just stand, and then you'd have the drums. I mean, I can still hear them today, and that's just every time, whether it was win or lose, that was always like a really powerful feeling. It always made me feel optimistic no matter what, and so that's something I'll always take.
Daniel, you did mention something though over on Twitter. You said that you would want to take over the raccoons and make them their own supporters group. Olsen's Furry Army.
Gosh, when that's said aloud like that, it makes me feel a certain joy having conceptualized that. My house had a family of raccoons right on top of the rooftop, and they'd duck their heads down, down to peek into a window every so often and just say hello. But so I've got a certain affinity towards raccoons, but I don't know, that they were all over the place over there, and so, if we had like a little animal sanctuary, sort of like the RFK refugees that can be brought over to Audi Field, would be fantastic. Have this little, and as I said, having a furry army, I completely support that. I wouldn't have tossed it out there if I didn't think that was a rad idea. So, I am an all-inclusive person of all walks of life. So, I would be tickled to see that at some point.
It would be.
That's wild. I love it.
It would be awesome just to see a mascot of a raccoon next to Talon.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Oh yeah. Oh. Just lean into it. Really, just embrace the fact that we lived with raccoons for years.
just find that meme and just give it a big old hug. That's how you get people aware of your product, is you just find the most ridiculous thing and you just own it and really enjoy it.
Oh, fantastic.
I mean, they're definitely not like embarrassed about the raccoon thing, because in the gift shops they sell raccoon plush toys with DC United's logo on the chest.
So just take it a step further,
just
and,
make
and
it
see
bigger.
what happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
They are the Olsen's Furry Army. Wow. It does sound absolutely brilliant. The OFA. Look at that.
Oh man.
We've got it, haven't we? We've got it.
Do we sort of like with Assad, do we start a hashtag movement here?
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
As soon as you have stopped listening to the show, or whilst you're listening to the show, just tweet out hashtag Olsen's Furry Army. Let's see if we can get that trending.
It's done.
Why not? Right. Let's move on from Olsen's Furry Army. I don't know how you move on from that, but I'm gonna give it a go. if you've listened to the show before, you'll know that I like to get people to send voice messages in. There's two here. And they're from the same person. So what we'll do, we'll listen to the first one. We'll go through it, and then we'll listen to the second one. So, the first message from Rithik Patel.
Hi, James. This is Rithik. I have a few questions to ask you. First of all, where in the team do you feel we need to strengthen? Like any positions where you feel we need to add depth. Obviously, we signed Julian Gressel, Yamil Assad, and Edison Flores, who are definitely going to help us score more goals. But do you feel we should add defensive reinforcements? Personally, I think we should look to sign another center back and even another left back, since Joseph Moore is our only option there. And do you think we should, add another striker? Personally, I don't think that Eric Sorga is ready for MLS duty yet, but I just want to hear your thoughts.
So, Rithik has obviously gone. He was just asking about obviously our roster depth there, which we've already spoken about. But just to reiterate our points before, we do need some better defensive cover. Let's put it that way. As you said, I don't think Joseph Moore is the only left back we've got. I think Chris Aduiasem can also cover there as well, can't he? As well as Fisher. So we've got some switchable cover, but not a proper out-and-out left-back. And then, obviously, another striker, yes. So we do need to cover up there. Would you guys agree on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All the help we can get at this point.
Yeah, you talked about it last week with Ken about Quincy Amarikwa. Would love to have him back. Playing backup to Ola. I think for Olsen it's really tough because he's a guy who wants work rate. So if he's going to have people backing up, he's going to want them, to perform in a way that sort of complements the starter. We saw that last year when Joseph Mora went out. Chris McCann stepped in, and he just didn't have the pace to keep up. He got cooked. In fact, he was part of that group that got smashed by Carlos Vela and LAFC. He could not catch a break against Vela on that right side, and it was really hard to adapt and sort of keep up for him. It's not just finding depth, but it's finding guys who sort of fit the system that Olsen has in place. I wish I could throw out a name, but that's sort of, the front office, they have a lot of work to do in the next 3 weeks to try to find people who can sort of fit in those roles. I think with our center backs, I think we're okay there between Brian Birnbaum and then we have Donovan Pines and Jalen Robinson. I think those two can shore up, as substitutes fine. Again, it's sort of, I feel like they need to pull back. Yeah, either Gressel or Areola, but I would prefer Areola because I think Gressel is just more technically gifted and can sort of find those crosses better than Areola can. Areola has pace for days, and I think that's just more helpful in kind of like that box to box sort of way, rather than someone who can kind of make those key passes and plays. So, that's sort of where it sits conceptually in my head.
Nice. I would love to say Robinson's still with the club, but he's actually left now.
Oh, is he? Oh, that's my bad.
That's all right. So only having Donovan Pines as a cover for centre back, I would definitely need one more. I would not be comfortable with only having one centre back cover. I think we definitely need another one. So the defensive line needs bolstering. Let's put it that way. And top line. Midfield, we're fine. We're fine with that. Should we move on to the second thing from Rithik?
For sure.
Here we go.
And my second question, James, is about Julian Gressel. Obviously, when he signed last week, basically all of us DC United fans were thrilled. He's been the assist king in MLS for the past few seasons, and he's such a versatile player. You know, he can play as a right back, as a right midfielder, as a winger, as a center midfielder, and his best position, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of Atlanta United fans, is at wing back. But where do you think Ben will put him in the team? My biggest worry is that he'll play mostly at right back, especially if O'Neal Fisher is not at 100% fitness by the start of the season. And I'm really worried by that because, you know, defensively, Julian is not the strongest, and he's best when and most effective when he gets forward and creates chances for strikers.
So, where do we think Gressel will actually end up playing? I watched his interview with Claudia Pagan just after he signed, and he mentioned he doesn't want to be playing at right back. He will do it, but that's not where he sees he plays, which was interesting to hear from the player himself to say that. But Sam, where do you think Ben will play Gressel? Do you think he will ignore that and just keep him at right back, or do you reckon he will be played further forward?
I do think, I mean, I say a lot of things about Ben Olsen because I do kind of question some of the stuff he does, but I really do think he's smart enough to realize the kind of talent that was just gifted to him in Julian Gressel. And if you don't play him at least right midfield, if not up further up top on the wing, then it's just going to be a waste of his talent. This guy, as we've already talked about, like one of the best passers of the ball in MLS the past 3 years. He's just an assist king, and you don't really want him playing at right back where he is defensively vulnerable. When we have played Paul Arriola at right back a number of times, even just this past season, we know he can do it. Maybe, I mean, again, Paul Arriola is no solid right back either, but I do think defensively he is a bit more solid than Julian Gressel. And so I think that alone just speaks to Gressel playing in the midfield and Arriola playing at right back. If we don't have O'Neal Fisher healthy, of course, who I think will be our number one right back option this year just out of necessity.
I think we've actually missed someone who could play at right back, and that is the guy who finished the season at right back, Russell Knaus.
Oh,
yeah,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was fantastic at right back. I found, in my opinion, anyway. He was a right back in Germany, and obviously always played at centre mid for us. But at the end of last season, he was right back. When we brought Felipe Martins in, obviously he fills where Knaus was. I think we'd end up starting Knaus at right back.
There are questions about Knaus and where his future lies with DC United. So that would be my only trepidation there. Going back to what I said very early in the podcast, with the sort of bounty of talent that they have in all those players, I don't, as far as those midfield guys go, I don't really want to see any of them on the bench when they're fit to play. For me, the way I sort of see the sort of right back position these days is very much kind of a hybrid. Maybe this is more along the lines of me, sort of obsessively watching Pep Guardiola for a while, but the way he sort of sends those guys forward is something, a direction that I see the game going, sort of in a modern sense. What is sort of crucial here is how open is Olsen to sort of adapting his formation. He's a guy who stresses a lot of organization, a lot of work rate, but if he tries to be too sort of kind of stringent or constricting in that or organization. I don't think that fully releases the potential that this team has. So if you have guys who are comfortable with shifting around with, kind of playing that total football style, that is something that could work really well for the team. I think this is a team where you need some experimentation is going to be necessary to find that success.
And Sam, any further thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think to piggyback off that, that's definitely, or at least hopefully, what this preseason is going to be all about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I still think we'll end up playing Knaus because after seeing the transfer speculation in regards to him, I think it was Dynamo Dresden who were after him. Are they still bottom of the Bundesliga 2? I'm just going to have a quick Google on it just to see what they're doing. And if they are, I can't see him moving there because they're going down to Bundesliga 3, which you don't, you wouldn't want that for your career. Dynamo Dresden.
They are at the bottom,
Yeah. And they're 4 points off the playoff relegation place, which that's not good. And they were further back as well. From the looks of it, from their recent form, they've won one and drawn one in the last 5 games. So I genuinely can't see them moving there. That's the only link I've seen. So I think for the time being, Knaus will be at DC United until the summer at the very least, if not beyond that. So,
a quick aside though, now that I'm sort of looking at this Bundesliga 2 table, I'm shocked at how far Hannover 96 has fallen from their days in the Bundesliga to where they are now mid-table in the second tier. That kind of blows my mind a little bit, but. Anyway, that's a complete aside.
I know. I mean, you're right. I mean, you look at some of the teams that are in the Bundesliga too, and you think, how are they down there? And you've got Stuttgart in there. You've got Hamburger SV in there. You've got Nuremberg in there. It's just like those teams that I knew were in Bundesliga 1, and it's just like, how?
Yeah. Anyway,
that was a little bit of a side step there. That is actually the end of the show now. So I want to give you thanks, Sam and Daniel, for being on the show. This is the time where you can say a little bit about yourself again, tell people where you can find you, and all the little extras you're doing. So Sam, have your little goodbye to the fans of the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really, really enjoyed myself. It was a lot of fun to talk just DC for once instead of talking about all of MLS. It feels good. You guys can find me on Twitter. My Twitter is @uncle_SamXIII. I tweet a lot about soccer, but I also tweet a lot about beer because I brew professionally as well. So you guys are going to get a little bit of everything if you follow me. So that's a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. If you guys want to hear me talk more, but with a little bit of a stutter, it's at MLS Aces. That's the podcast that I drink during.
I like that. The podcast you drink during. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah. And Daniel, yourself as well.
Yeah, so I can be found on Twitter at @sdakota_soccer. And I, run the Soccer Made Simple newsletter, and the link is on my profile there. Otherwise, you can look up #SoccerMadeSimple. You'll find a few of my tweets in that area as well. I've had a big life change moving from DC back home to South Dakota. So being sort of part of this group, I really appreciate you starting that and sort of keeping, it's a great way to stay connected with everyone there. And, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm super grateful you asked me, and I hope to be back again sometime. Really excited about this season, and Vamos United.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, guys, for being on. It is appreciated, and I'll definitely be asking you guys on again. It's been a fantastic episode, to say the least. Just from me, obviously you listen to the show, so hopefully if you haven't already, drop a little subscribe. If you're listening over on Apple Podcasts, drop a little rate and review. It helps the show out massively. If you're not following on Twitter, it's at DC United Kingdom. There is that group that Daniel's just mentioned. It's an ever-growing group. It's fantastic. I love it, and I'm sure everyone who's in it absolutely loves it as well. Head over to the website, which I've kind of redesigned a little bit recently, and that is dcunitedkingdom.com. You'll find the news that I put out there about DC United. You'll find all the little episodes on there as well if you want to listen to them. And this year I started doing merchandise, which I'm wearing at the moment, and you'll see me modelling it on the website now. I think I look rather good in it. I'm not going to lie. I think I look good. But you'll find everything over on there. You can join the group as well. There's a little membership form on there. And until next time, Vamos United.